The annual National Consultation on the Economy is an important aspect of economic governance in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, and by extension, the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. At this juncture in the history of the ECCU, economic governance is about building strong institutions and enhancing our capacity as young liberal democracies to achieve strong, sustainable socio-economic growth and deliver shared prosperity. Undoubtedly, a country's or region's status cannot be judged solely by its GDP or per capita income. Michael Green, in his 2015 article, "Why We Shouldn't Judge a Country by Its GDP," referred to the Social Progress Index, which encompasses 3 dimensions. 1, basic human needs, such as food, water, shelter, and safety. 2, foundations of well-being, such as basic education, health, information, and a sustainable environment. And 3, opportunity, such as civil rights, freedom of choice, freedom from discrimination, and access to higher education. And this is a useful framework for us to consider our economy and society. The global and regional outlook. We meet at a time when the global economy has slowed and there is mounting concern about a possible global recession, due in part to the US-China trade war, tensions in the Middle East, and Brexit. Typically, an inverted yield curve is a signal that a recession in the United States is likely within the next 2 years. Of course, I hasten to say these are less than normal or typical times. We'll see. As a consequence, major central banks have lowered interest rates, and in the case of the European Central Bank, has actually resumed quantitative easing in a bid to stimulate economic activity and stave off a recession. For this year and next, global growth is projected at 3.2% and 3.5% respectively. For the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, growth this year is projected at 3.3%, slightly down from the 3.8% recorded last year. And for next year, we currently project growth at around 3.2%. So we're holding our own, notwithstanding the challenges in the global economy. Even as we prioritize investments in the ECCU to spur growth and employment, we ought to be cognizant of opportunities in our region. One such opportunity is Guyana. As we are all aware, Guyana has discovered vast deposits of petroleum. Some of the benefits of these petroleum revenues will begin to flow from as early as next year. Businesses in St. Kitts and Nevis and in the rest of the ECCU ought to consider their possibilities within the framework of the CSME. Acceleration of key reforms. Even as we seek to delay the global recession, we would do well to reflect on the lessons of the last global financial crisis. One of the weaknesses witnessed in many ECCU countries was the inability of governments to implement counter-cyclical fiscal policy to cushion the effect of the recession of the crisis on the population. This situation was due to a multiplicity of factors, including natural disasters, loss of preferential access for sugar and bananas, weak financial management, high debt, and a lack of fiscal buffers. In response, the Monetary Council set a target of 2030 for member countries to achieve a public sector debt-to-GDP ratio of 60%. The ECCU debt-to-GDP ratio dropped to 68.1% at the end of last year from 78.2% in 2014. I congratulate St. Kitts and Nevis on being the first independent country in the ECCU to reach this target. Having attained this important milestone, the question then is, what's next? In my humble estimation, the next step for government is to adopt a fiscal responsibility framework, or what I prefer to call a fiscal resilience framework. Why? This framework is not merely about fiscal discipline and financial or fiscal rules, as important as those are. It is more about resilience, the capacity of a country to rebound after a shock or setback. In other words, in the good times, you must save for the bad times, the rainy day, as it were. I am aware that the government has begun exploratory work on this issue, and I therefore urge that this work be completed and the requisite framework enacted. Of necessity, such a framework would include a fiscal watchdog that reports to the Parliament, as is the case in Grenada, and will soon be the case in Jamaica, the Bahamas, and Barbados. I now turn briefly to the matter of the ease of doing business. And much has already been said about this by the President of the Chamber. In 2018, of the 6 countries in the ECCU, we ranked 93rd in the case of St. Lucia to 147 in the case of Grenada, with St. Kitts at 140. Our aspiration is to see our countries in the ECCU ranked in the top 50 in the world. When this index first started in 2007, our collective ranking was 14. The point is that it is not that we're not doing anything in the ease of doing business area. It is just that the world is moving faster than ourselves. This is a relative ranking. So if you take 2 steps and the world takes 4, you've lost 2 steps. You've lost ground. And that is the issue that we have to wrap our minds around. This improvement will not happen by accident. To that end, I am advised, and we just heard it a while ago confirmed, that the government of St. Kitts and Nevis has tasked the Chamber with playing a leading role in this turnaround. I welcome this move and encourage the full cooperation of the relevant state actors. The criticality of the digital economy. Our region is in search of a new development model. All that you see that we're doing now, citizenship by investment program, legal, cannabis, among other things. All we are trying to do is find a way to make a living, a decent, honest living, and to take care of the aspirations, the legitimate aspirations of our people. That's what we're trying to do. In this quest for a new development model, our economies must become digital. We can no longer operate in analog in a digital world. After all, data is the currency of the 21st century. In this regard, I applaud government's recent strides in developing a digital economy strategy, and we'll hear more about that later, and that's an exciting development. One of the pillars of the digital economy is digital finance. In this regard, the ECCB is a global leader with its digital currency pilot. You will hear more about this pilot in the post-lunch session, and I'll have a few exciting announcements to make on this matter on Thursday of this week. Stay tuned. In this era of data and data analytics, evidence-based policy making is imperative for strong economic governance. Indeed, it is often the difference between leaders and laggards, champions and the also-rans. Against this backdrop, I seize this opportunity in the presence of captains of industry and commerce to make a plea for your timely response to surveys conducted by the Central Statistical Office and the Central Bank. We rely on these surveys in our estimation of GDP, balance of payments, business and credit market conditions, and the investment climate. Your low response rates or the provision of inaccurate information is, frankly spoken, a dereliction of duty and a disservice to your nation and region. And very often that leads to poor decision making by policymakers in both the public and private sectors. But perhaps even worse or equally bad is when development partners, regional and international partners, come to erroneous conclusions about us because we either do not provide data or the data is inaccurate. You know how frustrating it is to pick up a publication from some global or international organization, and when you look for the Eastern Caribbean, you see NA, not available. Folks, we have to tell our story. We have to tell our story. And when we fail to tell that story, somebody is going to write what they want. And very often it will be to our detriment. So I want to say this morning, feedback is a gift. Those of us in business, whether you're in the private sector or the public sector, understand feedback is crucial, without which you cannot meet the needs of your customers. And I make the point that for us today, we have to be in a position, and tourism is our business. That's our largest earner of foreign exchange, to be able to receive feedback and to be able to make timely decisions. Enough said on that. Consistent with the focus on the digital economy, the ECCB is pursuing the use of data analytics as part of its toolkit for providing influential policy advice to member governments and the public. To that end, the bank has made a significant investment in the development of its SaaS database, multi-million-dollar investment by our bank, to serve our members and stakeholders. So, for example, our commercial banks are now uploading their prudential data into that database, and they can then retrieve their own data series and aggregated data on demand. In other words, they can get it whenever they want it. And Financial Secretary, you'll be pleased to know that we propose to offer a similar service to the Financial Services Regulatory Commission. Stay tuned. In conclusion, therefore, I hope the presentation and discussions today will not only benefit the preparation of the 2020 budget, but will fortify the progress of the Federation in the sphere of economic governance and the quest for shared prosperity. Please accept my very best wishes and full assurance that your central bank stands ready to support you in this important endeavor. Thank you.